I want you to think about the most memorable meal of your life. Now, what separates that meal from all the other thousands of meals you've ever eaten? Maybe the people you were with, the atmosphere, the flavor of the food, whatever it was. Now when you think about that meal, you have a strong sense of appreciation. My guess is that this meal didn't happen at a fast food restaurant. But somehow we find ourselves eating at these establishments more and more. Did you know that the number of fast food restaurants has more than doubled since 1970? In contrast to a memorable meal, fast food encourages our communities to settle for the stealthy, quick bite. I say stealthy because oftentimes we just want to grab a bite of food without taking too much time out of our day. But this idea of a quick bite takes the valuable time, the attention and the appreciation away from us, which for many has led to a thoughtless diet where the connection to our food has been lost. This lack of appreciation and attention to our food has contributed to obesity and disease, which in turn has led to healthier food options. But of course, not everyone has the privilege or the resources to explore these options. And on the other side of it, there's always people who are constantly staying on top of the latest health trends. But what's the solution for those of us who are just hungry and not necessarily seeking out some specific healthier lifestyle? Now, I'm not one to believe in the one and only right diet. Everybody's different. But I did have an idea. It's an idea for people who aren't necessarily looking for the quick fix diet change that's going to change their lives forever, or the secret food. It's an idea for people who simply want to take a step in the right direction towards eating a more intentional diet. Now, I want you to think about that meal again. What exactly did you appreciate about it? I'm no expert on appreciation, but there have been countless studies that show the correlation between gratitude and happiness, including psychologist Michael McCullough's research on the Happier Human website that says that expressions of gratitude reinforce moral behavior. And I think that includes eating well, because our food choices not only impact us, but the people around us and the world around us, for better or for worse. Now, I think gratitude and appreciation are two of the most underappreciated human emotions. Sure, we're taught please and thank you when we're young, but how many of us are really taught to take a step back and appreciate each moment? It's hard, it takes focus, and is learned over time through experiences. So I'm led to the questions, how much do we appreciate the food that we eat? And if we added a heightened sense of appreciation to our eating experiences, how might our consumption choices change? My observation is that we don't really appreciate everything that we put into our bodies. The exception being when that food costs top dollar, in which case we feel obligated to appreciate the food in order to get the value out of the cost. So what's the solution? Could you imagine a world where we appreciated great food as much as we appreciate great music? What if we got lost in the flavors and aroma of a dish the same way that we get caught up in the sounds and energy of our favorite songs? When it boils down to it, pun intended, music and food aren't so different. Sure, on the surface level, they're virtually uncomparable. Music relies on our ears and our sense of rhythm, while food requires taste buds and our palate. But I think it's possible to listen with all of our senses. Obviously, we can taste and smell our food, but we can also hear the sizzle of the pan or the crunching of fresh vegetables being chopped. We can feel the warmth of the oven or the textures on our tongue. And then we can see the visual presentation, whether it's an extravagant display or simply noticing the natural beauty of air pockets in bread. Why then is it so common to appreciate music and other forms of art more than we do our food? The biggest barrier in my eyes is that music hits us on an emotional level. It brightens our day, it makes us sad or causes excitement. Because music tells a story. And we've been separated from the story of our food. Every meal, snack, or drink that you've put into your body has a story. Every piece of meat contains the story of a living, breathing animal. Every fresh piece of fruit or vegetable also has a story. It didn't just come from nothing. I believe that when we start to genuinely care about the stories of our food, we'll start paying more attention to what we put into our bodies. Yeah, so every piece of meat has a story of a living, breathing animal. Every fresh piece of fruit or vegetable also contains a story. It didn't just come from nothing. But our industrialized food system never tells us these stories. So let me tell you the story of a glass of fine wine. It all starts with the planting of the vines, many of which have been planted 20, 30, 40 years ago. Some even have 100 years of history in their roots. Every year, the characteristics of the fruit are different. That's why the year on a wine label is important. Each year, there is a chronicle of sun, rain, and wind, and so much more that we as consumers don't often consider. In places like Germany and France, there can be a lot of harsh weather conditions, including violent hail and damaging winds. But for the grapes, it's all just a part of the story. When the harvest rolls around, volunteers carefully hand-pick only the best grapes from the vineyard and send them off to be mashed, and they're juiced and separated from their tannic skins. This juice is then sent to fermentation vessels, whether those fermentation vessels are made of steel or oak, or sometimes even stone. Could be family tradition, or it could be stylistic preference. It's all part of the story. So the natural yeasts and sugars interact with each other and commingle to produce alcohol. And when the product is finally ready, somebody has to design the wine label. Somebody has to buy the empty bottles for the winery to use, fill those bottles, cork those bottles, and then put the label on the wine bottle. Then they have to sell to distributors who send it to stores and restaurants all over the world. People walk into stores, see the display, they buy the wine, open it, pour it, and drink it. Now that's a long and complex story that most of us are totally unaware of. I use wine as an example, but the truth is there's a story like this behind every ingredient of the last meal you ate. Some are great stories and some are not so great stories. To be fair, I don't think it's practical to appreciate everything that you eat from here on out. But what is achievable is just for a moment to look at a plate of food and think about the story. Can you picture an animal on the end of that hot dog? Can you picture bread being baked in an oven, or was it produced in a lab? Now picture winemakers carefully picking grapes, or cows peacefully grazing in an open field. Which story would you rather be a part of? My vision is a mainstream world where we look at our plate of food and think about the story, because with story comes meaning, and with meaning comes emotion. I believe we can start a movement where food is considered to be an art form and is appreciated like one. So next time you're in a restaurant or at the grocery store, think about what has the most attractive story, because it might change yours. Thank you.